It's like my friends who are trying to buy houses and they say, oh, we'll wait until the housing market goes down. Yeah, the housing market will get right to that. It'll start to balance out any second now, irrespective of the fact that it's always going up. That's the price of a pass rusher. It is so easy. That's what's frustrating. It is so easy to come to an agreement with a player like Micah Parsons. Just give him a little bit more than the top pass rusher before him. The market is set. You go out, you give him $42 million. Sure, you do that because he's worth it. The cap always goes up. There's always flexibility. We've seen time and time again how you're able to build a roster when you're able to sign these guys, get cost certainty, and move on. When you're playing the game with franchise tag and fifth-year options, you're spending a lot of money. The Eagles never do this stuff, and that's why the Eagles have a much better 53 than the Cowboys.
Bill used the word desperate to describe any team that would want a player like Micah Parsons. You know who's desperate for Micah Parsons? Matt Eberflus, because scheme dependent. This scheme, specific to what Matt Eberflus has run throughout the course of his career, gets pressure with its 4-down linemen. You need dudes up front. That's why it didn't work in Chicago, why Chicago was 30th in pressure percentage the last 3 years, why they were 22nd in blitz percentage. It's antiquated in a lot of respects, but they want to get pressure on the quarterback with their 4-down linemen. What happens when you take away the guy who led your team in sacks, had 22 more first pressures than any other player on the roster last year, and also is pretty good at taking the ball away? 2 forced fumbles. That's number 2 on the team right now because Eric Kendricks is no longer there. The guy right behind Micah Parsons in sacks last year was Chauncey Golston. Where is he? Not on the Dallas Cowboys this year. There are a lot of moving parts. So if I'm the defensive coordinator, I'm going up to Jerry Jones's office right now being like, you can't do this to my defense. We will not be able to get after the quarterback if he is not on this roster.
Yeah, it's a great point. And by the way, today it flipped over to August. It's August 1st for anybody keeping track. September 4th is when the Cowboys kick their season off against the Super Bowl champion winning Eagles. That's going to be here before we know it. All right, we're going to table this and get to more drama. That's in Washington, as Terry McLaurin officially requested a trade. We thought this would be the lead of our show, and then Micah Parsons said, I'm going to take care of that. We're going to welcome in John Keim, our Commanders reporter. John, what more can you tell us about everything going on with Terry McLaurin and the team?
All right, Laura, there's 4 things I think that are important to know here. 1, they're not going to trade him. He came out with the trade request yesterday. They have no intention of trading him. I've heard that a number of times over the last few months. They're not going to trade him. Heard it again yesterday before he made this announcement and heard it again today. They're not going to trade him. They feel like they can contend for the Super Bowl. Losing Terry McLaurin does not help back west. They view this as another bargaining chip for Terry McLaurin's side. A couple weeks ago, he expressed frustration at a press conference. Then he held out. Then he held in. All along, no movement, so this is the latest development. Number 2 is age. That's always been the sticking point for the Commanders. McLaurin turns 30 next month. When the extension would start, he'd be 31. They don't want to pay a 31, 32, 33-year-old a big receiver big money. They're a heavily analytics-based group. The analytics show that receivers start to decline. McLaurin, of course, would counter and say, this is only his 7th year in the NFL. He doesn't have the same wear and tear on his legs as others at his age. The third thing is DK Metcalf's deal. That's the sticking point for McLaurin. Metcalf received a $32.5 million per year deal from the Steelers. McLaurin and Metcalf, same draft class, similar production. The Commanders would counter saying that Metcalf is 2 years younger. And finally, there's precedent. The Commanders don't want to pay what they would view as an above-market deal for an older receiver. Keep in mind, next year, a couple guys will be up for contract extensions. Larry Tunsil, Frankie Louvu, possibly Marshawn Lattimore, possibly Deebo Samuel. That's why this has been a sticking point along. It's why it has taken this long and could take several more weeks to figure out.
John, it's really interesting context. Thank you so much for providing it. And Adam, I feel like a lot of people are just saying, pay Terry McLaurin. You can't operate this offense without him. Jaden Daniels needs him. But what more can you add about why this is more complicated than that?
Well, John hit on the value, and it's all about that, where Terry McLaurin believes that he has outperformed DK Metcalf, who was in his draft class, and teams always pay a premium for when they trade for a player like the Pittsburgh Steelers did, but DK Metcalf got an average of 33 million per year. The Washington Commanders believe that they really want to keep Terry McLaurin, but they have a different idea of his value. They look at other deals. Mike Evans, $24 million. Cortland Sutton, $24 million. They look at some of those deals and say, well, that's comparable in some ways too. And so there is the rub, because Terry McLaurin's been so good for so long on and off the field. He's been a model for that organization. The prices of wide receiver have risen over the last year, and that's why he believes he's worth at least what DK Metcalf has gotten from Washington. And right now, the two sides remain in a stalemate. But I will say this, Laura, it's August 1st. We have Terry McLaurin issuing a trade request from the Washington Commanders. We have Micah Parsons issuing a trade request from the Dallas Cowboys. We have Trey Hendrickson disgruntled in Cincinnati, ending his holdout this week but still not practicing. The season hasn't begun. We've just got
what the Super Bowl champs are up to. We're going to go live to Philly. You see Dan Graziano there. He continues his illustrious camp tour. Graz, some changes to the Eagles offense with the new OC taking over. What can you tell us about their philosophy now, and maybe if it changes at all heading into this season?
Yeah, Laura, I don't think it's going to change much. The Eagles aren't going to mess with a successful, good thing that they had last year in terms of the offense. It's interesting because they seem to change every year. 2 years ago, they went to the Super Bowl and lost. They lose their offensive coordinator, Shane Steichen, to the Colts. They hire Brian Johnson, promote him internally from their staff. Didn't go well. This time they lose Kellen Moore to the Saints, and they promote Kevin Patullo from the staff. But because of his experience here and the Eagles players' experience around him, the Eagles have reason to believe that this year's offensive coordinator change will go much more smoothly than it did a couple of years ago.
Kevin's did a good job. I think he's been really implemental, the past 4 or 5 years that he's been here. Being next to our OC, so really big in installing, our passing game attack. And so really it's been a flawless transition. And as we progress towards the season, we just keep better and better.
One person I talked to here said that Kevin Patullo was, quote, overdue for his chance to be an offensive coordinator in this league. He's been around a lot of great offensive minds, and he has one himself. So the Eagles, look, I mean, the offense took off last year when they figured out our offensive line can open holes, Saquon Barkley can run through them. Everything we do is going to be based off of that. Laura, I don't think that Kevin Patullo is going to change that fundamental aspect of the Eagles offense that delivered them their second Super Bowl title.
Roz, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thanks so much. You're the best. And this afternoon, the other news going on in the NFC East. With no traction on contract talks, Micah Parsons said he wants to be traded by the Cowboys, saying, quote, yes, I wanted to be here. I did everything I could to show that I wanted to be a Cowboy and wear the star in my helmet. Unfortunately, I no longer want to be here. More on the Cowboys.